I have thoughts, but we're not going to get into them.
I wasn't gonna watch it, and then people seem to think it stuck the land. Or I was gonna watch it, but I was waiting for my brother, but he was busy.
Refocus. Are people seeing our stream? Because I clicked go live, and I'm refreshing.
I'm about to find out.
Refresh the YouTube.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
The end of Nigh is really funny.
Let me grab the link and tweet it out. Anyone who's here early, hi, share.
One watching now. It's got to be one of us, right?
I have it open.
It's me too. And the people who are actually there. Okay, Christopher Robin Hood. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good before and after. Christopher Robin Hood. I like that.
Tune on in. Post.
What's up, y'all?
My computer is wheezing. Wheezing, it's doing.
Forgotten that.
Please never make me think about turnitin.com again.
We're free. It can't touch us anymore.
Says you. I was gonna say the one kid in grad school.
Yeah.
Our token grad student. Hello to everyone joining us. We'll get this. We'll kick this off in just a minute. I am testing starting the stream a few minutes early so that we can get all of our tech stuff in order and everything sounds fine, and then we actually start answering questions. And all my tech stuff imploded before we started streaming, and I felt like it was going crazy. But everything's fine. Everything's going great now.
Is the video frame, like, is the visual for it slightly stretched?
Please, dear God.
I'm not trying to, like, that's not what a D20 perfectly looks like. It's a little bit more wide, you know? And it looks like all the background sparkles are just a little bit, what?
The graphic
Have I just never looked at it closely enough?
Well, that's the thing. I think the graphic that you're seeing is perhaps like a little wider because of the way that it is being taken from Streamlabs into YouTube, but our logo does not have a perfectly made D20 on it because I made this in Illustrator and I hand drew these shapes, so if they are not exactly mathematically perfect.
Hold on, I'm gonna look at how it looks on the podcast.
That's why
it's
difficult.
It's slightly fatter. It's slightly bigger on the
the icosahedron gained a couple pounds. You don't have to point it out or anything.
I'm sorry.
Be nice.
We're rolling with difficulty. It's a hard die to roll.
All of the VOD people who are coming in and they'll have to sit through 5 minutes of talking about whether our D20 is too fat before we answer questions.
It's
D20 is too dummy.
Right? I was just asking.
Yeah, don't.
Get out while you can.
We'll kick this thing off. We're close enough here. I think it's fine. Hello! Welcome to the Rolling with Difficulty Q&A. We're in the middle of our final season of the Paraspora campaign. We are so excited to be here. We got the whole cast together. We're going to answer you guys' questions, both in chat and from our email, about the game so far. And if you stick around till the end, we just might have a little bit of fun and secret info about the next campaign. Ooh, teasers. Ooh. So just the warning at the top of the show, it is fair game for anything that has come out so far. So if you are not up to date and you care about spoilers, this is your official warning that if you have not listened to season 5, episode 5, we very well will probably talk about it. So now is your chance to tune out and listen in later. But in the meantime, I think it's best to jump on in. So we're going to start with a question from the email, but do feel free to start dropping those questions in chat. Hi, Rolling with Difficulty crew. I have a question for Wally. What are Voss's eating habits and or his worst food crimes, and what would Finbar think about them?
Oh, God.
Food crimes. Tell us about the food crimes.
Okay, so in terms of recently, since joining the crew, he just eats the food Finbar has left for him. So he's not particularly picky. He'll eat anything you put in front of him. In terms of the stuff that he ate growing up, I imagine it's just typical military rations. So he's not a foodie. He's not very particular with the kind of food that he eats, as long as it's sustenance. He's not really all that picky.
He's just been living on MREs for.
Yep.
How old is Voss, actually? I don't actually know this.
I think I put him in his late 20s, early 30s. I have to check his character sheet because it's tough to say.
MREs for 30 years. That's awful.
Yeah, basically.
We gotta get him and Finbar in the same room together.
Don't do that to me. I can't switch between the two of them.
No.
It's like the old Adam West, Bruce Wayne, and Batman on the same phone call with Commissioner Gordon problem.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how Austin plays multiple characters all at once. I could barely.
Often I just do it badly. That's kind of my secret. Is I just
it was very funny hearing you lose the Voss accent. I guess I mean we can't discuss this, but it was very funny hearing that briefly happen. There's like a thing.
I checked the character sheet. He's 30.
Yeah. There's a thing in voice acting, I think it's called an anchor phrase, where you have like one line that you say to get in character. And I like that with Voss, it's all right. Every time. That's always how you start it.
Yeah. My two biggest references is who's the voice actor for? There's a character for the game Apex Legends, Fuse. Big inspiration for where I do the Australian accent from. Only because past 2 years I've played too much of that game.
Ben Prendergast.
Yes.
Oh.
There we go. He's in
That's funny that you say that because
familiar. What do I know him from?
Our friend also played a character with an Australian accent, right? And his thing was what did he say? Right, it wasn't all right. He'd be like, "Oh, right then." He would always start with "right then" when he was coming. Right then, when he was coming in with the accent.
That's good.
He would always start with that. So
you need that right sound.
Right.
Oh my goodness, there's so many questions.
Yep.
Oh,
so we're gonna
Tyr in God of War Ragnarok.
We're gonna jump to another question because I feel like we could do this one forever with all of us doing progressively worse and worse Australian accents. So Davriel Kane in the chat asks, how would you guys have played things differently if Rolling with Difficulty was a home game rather than an actual play?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I go off on many more tangents in home games. I feel no guilt about it.
I feel like the secret is that our podcast is so very specifically attempting to be an adventure, an episode, and a home game. I don't know that we would have that same limitation necessarily. I think there might be more shopping built in.
Yeah, probably be more meandering.
There would be some more meandering, but I think in general the adventures would just take longer. So like Otto's job for you guys was a 1 session thing, right? Like you guys went to Hades and fought your way to the front line. Like I could imagine that being a couple sessions of having to like make your way through the front lines, World War One, like getting up on the trench into no man's land style several times to make your way where you were going. Yeah, exactly. It could have been, as I haven't seen that movie, but yes, it could have been 1917. And that could have been like 2 or 3 sessions. But it wasn't, because that's not how we played the game. But looking back, there are definitely several things that I would have loved to be longer. The Beastlands. You guys were in the Beastlands chasing Elise for like 1 session. And I'm like, I would have loved to spend forever in the Beastlands running around and like get to see a bunch of stuff there. So that's how it would have been different.
Oh, I would have hijacked the table so many times. There was a moment where a Voss could have very easily stolen the ship. And I'll tell you guys right now, if it was a home game, I would have 200% done that. I would have just straight up done that.
I kind of hoped you would do it too. It would have been that would have been so funny. Like that was oh god, what that was gonna be like their darkest moment too. That was the end of season 4.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way out of that where Voss doesn't end up like murdered by the rest of the party. Wally's third character.
I was like, Voss you turn Voss back over to me, and he's a bad guy NPC once you do that. Like, that's the end of you playing Voss. Yeah, exactly.
So sick.
But yes. If Dani reses someone, could that person turn blue? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That kind of happened to Cressida a little bit. I think the thing I described for her having a bluish sheen to her.
It's hard to tell with Drow because they're kind of black and white most of the time, but
I think rather than them being fully blue, it's more of just like it's like adding a desaturated layer or like a wash on top of them, basically. So then just like a hint of blue. You
multiply layered.
Yeah.
That would just it's not. They just have a hue color layer blend mode in Clip Studio Paint now, so you could just blue shifter.
There you go.
Nebulaeus in chat asks, who's everyone's favorite character excluding their own player characters? So favorite NPC or other player characters, whether it's our guests or ourselves or an NPC. I do like Davian.
He's so fun.
Athos is pretty tight.
Go on.
I did like Casimir. Virla doesn't like Casimir, but I like Casimir a lot.
Casimir's a pretty good one.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Roy, but I also made Roy, so I feel bad. Being like, my favorite NPC is my best boy.
I know, right? Like, I could.
Maybe I'll put Roy, because I was gonna say, if all mine are the NPCs, and I feel bad picking one of your guys's.
Okay, I'll pick Davian because you made Davian, and you can pick Roy because I made
child now.
I'll pick.
No. Yeah, choose one of us.
Well, it just feels like cheating at the question. They were like, not your question. So I feel, maybe Roy. Athos too, because that's my friend Kyle's character. I didn't make him up. So
Noir, could you drop an announcement that the stream is happening into the Discord? I realized that I tweeted it and blue skied it and did not post it there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh dang.
Blue skied it.
I blue skied
both people are gonna see it.
Hey, all the love to our Blue Sky audience. We ran into a listener who specifically said at PAX Unplugged, we saw your post on Blue Sky. So you know what?
Absolutely lovely.
You know what? Yep. Absolutely wonderful audience in there. Love you guys. I hope you're listening. It was really great to meet. One of the best parts, this is not a question we got, but PAX Unplugged was extremely fun, and I can't wait to go again next year because it was so tight. But questions from chat. Is Daviani ever going to happen? Who knows? Mysteries abound.
How would your character know that?
Hell yeah. It's a mystery yet unsolved.
You get a glimpse of a weird happy future, and you're like,
in my mind, like even in a world where everything ends perfectly and everyone like adventures forever or whatever, like I don't know that Dani and Davian is ever going to be like like a big end of movie thing. In my mind, it's just constant negging for the next like 20 years as they encounter each other in their own jobs, like they'll just run into each other at the docks and like immediately a cat fight breaks out, and that just continues forever.
I think the funniest possibility is if we do like a 20 years later adventure. Yeah. That's exactly the dynamic, except it also turns out that you guys were married for like 5 years.
I was gonna say, like, if we ever revisit these characters for a one shot, I thought the direction you were gonna go to is like we cut back to Dani and it's just she's had a string of shameful one-night stands.
I've been on record as saying my favorite dynamic to play in D&D is recently divorced, so that would feed into
That's pretty good.
Yes, it's all coming together.
Everything's coming together.
If we ever bring everyone back for like a level 21 shot.
This is another question from chat for Austin, from Emma. Have any other pieces of sci-fi or fantasy media inspired this campaign?
Oh, have any? Well, we talk a lot about the original ones. One that there's. Oh my goodness, Victoria might hear me mention this and then text me. The original conceit about where Kyana comes from came from a book Victoria had read, and I was like pulling my hair out. I was like, because Red and I talked, and she was like, I have a monk. She runs away from a monastery. It's like, cool. That monastery needs to be up to the worst thing imaginable. What are they doing? And I was pulling my hair out, and then she pitched this thing, and the pitch lined up with, like, as soon as she said it, I thought of Mind Flayers, and I was like, that's fantastic. I have to do that. So I believe there was a sci-fi book that inspired that. I will also say the Final Architecture series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The first one is, keep turning my head to look at it behind me, Shards of Earth, which I think I actually read because it was recommended on Twitter by Tim, Hello Future Me.
Hell yeah.
He recommended that, and I read that, and that is an inspiration a little bit for, there's not the main bad guys, but like, if you read this, you'll go, oh yeah, I can see how someone would read this, and then like, read the campaign that Austin has been making. There's definitely from some naming conventions to some like large plot stuff. I feel like I drew a lot of inspiration from it, like little ideas that come through. So I'd say that is, that's probably the best answers I can give.
Which is honestly a huge relief, because when I ran away from that monastery, I was thinking it was a little more like Aang situation, where it's like, hopefully I didn't just screw over the entire world. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Oh, no, I was like, these are the worst people.
Because I was like, I don't want to be like magical destiny main character syndrome-y, but I would kind of like to have just said, this isn't for me, and fucked off regardless of consequences.
That'd be really funny.
Yeah.
We got more questions to get to. This one comes from the email. What is the brief explanation for Finbar being a part of the crew of the Paraspora? Upon listening back, I'm not sure we got an in-depth explanation. I don't know if we ever like explicitly said how Finbar joined the crew, because obviously we found Kyana, and Dani sort of found Virla, and in that way we are the found three people, and then also Finbar was there. How did we find Finbar? I think
I
Finbar found
believe
us, right?
Yeah, I think it was, like, properly hired.
Assigned to the Searing Tongue has the Whipped Crown was the primary what's the Spelljammer that they sent out in order to get ingredients. They were looking for other Spelljammers to bring into the fold in order to have a larger region out in the Planescape. They heard about the Paraspora needed. They got in contact with Otto and they assigned Finbar to Otto, and Otto put him on the Paraspora, essentially. So it was a job initially for him.
Yeah. He's the only one who was properly
stipend.
hired.
Yeah, Otto got like a small. They're basically they sent
he got
cooks
paid
out
for this
into the.
shit.
Yeah,
You guys are getting
they got
sick.
cooks out.
He got paid, not Finbar.
Yeah, to have someone to use his ship. So Otto got a small stipend basically just to have someone on the ship. Because the Searing Tongue was like,
So
it's good to have people out there discovering new things.
So you're saying there's a world where Dani, as the new captain of the Paraspora, could hire Nell and we could just have her on the ship all the time?
I
and
don't
get
think
paid?
Nell is technically a chef. I think Nell is
we
just
need
an
people. We
administrator.
lose so much paperwork. We would love an administrator. That would be such a useful function.
What's his name? What's his name? The crystal guy, like Wilmar, Wilmot.
Oh, Wilmot.
Wilmot.
Wilmot, the depressed crystal.
You want another sad robot on the ship? Is that what
He'd be
you're asking
great.
for?
But also, like,
Just a
if we
big
get
shiny
Nell,
Eeyore.
if we get Nell, she's just gonna be relegated to the basement with the other weird little dudes we don't want to imperil in combat.
Oh, but Nell's so much more than a weird little dude.
I can imagine, like, after every mission, we need to, like, catalog the loot that we have. We go straight to Nell. We just dump a whole bunch of stuff on the desk. And just like, all right.
Here's my latest goop collection.
Yeah.
Oh God, that reminds me. My dad was listening through Rolling with Difficulty, and he was like, the fight with Blocketh was very interesting, but I can't believe you put on her armor without like checking to see if it was cursed. The idea that you would just take a lich's equipment without thinking it was some way horribly cursed is
your
bananas.
dad does not know me. I do not care. I don't care if the item's cursed.
I think my dad was more
better.
impressed that Austin didn't make it horribly cursed.
You know,
I mean, it's
honestly,
still very.
No, it's not cursed.
It's not
I can't imagine because I'm sure there could have been something, but you have to imagine that she didn't think she was gonna. Like, she was very confident she wasn't gonna die. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
So she's not that worried. The armor's not that powerful. And like, I'm not sure what curse she would put on it that would affect someone else and not her. I'm sure I could come up with something, but I didn't want you guys to. If there was a curse on it, what you could just cast remove curse and remove it. This is part of the problem with 5e, is that that's very low stakes. So it could create something higher stakes, right? She could have a very powerful curse that requires something. But now we're on a side plot in the final 10 episodes, and I didn't. It just doesn't work out. I will say, I don't know if I ever mentioned this. The whip Finbar had attuned to that was in his arm. That was 100% cursed beyond the you need a remove curse to remove it. If you are attuned to that and you make any saving throws against Mind Flayer abilities, you have disadvantage.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, he still has it, right?
No, he unattuned from it, and Finbar left before before you guys went back to the Mind Flayers, so it didn't end up mattering. But because it was in a monk, they'd given it to a monk, and it was a weapon for the monk, but it was also a way to control them if they ever turned on the Mind Flayers. It was a weapon for them to use, and it was also a debuff against the Mind Flayers in case they ever revolted for whatever reason.
Interesting. Well, we got more questions to get to. This one is, Dani said that in Brass, people are set on fire as a funeral tradition. Was that influenced by the way she cast Revivify? The thing about people in Brass setting themselves on fire, or setting others on fire as a funeral tradition, was sort of a thing I just pulled out of my ass when we did Egan's death at the end of season 1. And so I was like, I guess this will be a thing I call back to forever. So it's a little less that Revivify influenced it and more existing flavor text influenced the way that I described Revivify for Dani, which also felt the most appropriate variant of fire person sets someone on fire, like Phoenix from the Ashes style. It just seemed like it would be a cool visual for a spell I didn't really anticipate casting ever, if all that often. All right.
Someone mentioning you guys could hire a la carte.
Oh my god, you're right.
I knew there was another NPC.
We have not seen them in forever.
That's my favorite
I want
NPC.
a la carte back.
A la carte
Give
better
them
be the
to
fucking
me.
head of the Searing Tongue the next time we come back.
Yep.
More,
Those
more
peanut butter crackers
level 20 one shot.
Yes.
Those peanut butter crackers were legendary.
Another question from chat. Would Kyana have an advantage on rock, paper, scissors? She could play by herself without anyone else needing to be there.
Bold of you to assume I would be so ignoble as to cheat at rock, paper, scissors rather than simply committing to one thing with all 4 arms.
Dani wins every time because Dani casts gun. So.
Yeah.
Man. All right. This next question from chat. Question for Austin. How do you find out all the lore you have for gods, monsters, and the planescape? It's so detailed, and even online, I can't find everything that you have.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, a couple people have asked me this, and run down real quick. There's just the wiki. I trawl through those ads endlessly. I bought digitally on DM's Guild. There's a lot of good sources on DM's Guild, a lot of good creators there, so I always recommend going there because it is, it's a platform created by WotC, so you get to use some of their stuff in exchange for them getting a cut of the fee, but there's a lot of people putting good stuff out on there. I have some of the original Planescape stuff in PDF from there, and then I buy, oh my goodness, I always forget the name of this. I'll look it up real quick, but there's a series of stuff about the different planes, and there's a different one document for every single plane. That's Codex of the Infinite Planes is the series, and there's one for every plane, and it's great. It's great. It's got tons of information. It's got lore. It's got encounters and monsters, and sometimes even player options. It's great. Hi, Cheese Puff.
Oh, an attendee of your
You're
summer
one
camp.
of 2 people, and whichever one you are, you definitely should be on here.
Aww. Well, hello all the same.
All right, please go on.
Well, we have more questions for you, Austin. Do the guest episodes have their adventure of the day influenced by the guest, or do you have something in mind for them to build a character concept around?
Oh, so we've only done the 2, and it was different both times. When we had Blue on, I knew that you guys were going to kind of be in a... kind of like, it was still very episodic back then. I knew that we'd have time to fit something in, so I talked to Blue about what he wanted to do, and we crafted the adventure together, and yeah, that's how that happened. And then when we had Dom on, you guys were very when we had Dom on, you guys were very much embroiled in the middle of a plot, and so I said, they're going to be here doing this thing. What character do you want them to meet? And his first pitch was actually, sorry to blow up your spot, Tom. His very first pitch was, I'd love to play like a Warforged with amnesia. And I said,
Well, I already got one of those.
Well, he's actually, what he said was, I've listened to a few episodes, and then he said, I'd love to play a Warforged with amnesia. And I was like, all right, well, we do have one of those, so I'm not going to tell you no, but I'd strongly ask you to reconsider.
I'd like to think that you explained the premise of the episode so well that he made a character that would perfectly fit within the plot, because that's why they were there.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. and so we brought him in, and he got to be in 2 episodes, which is awesome. And then that was the time that I said, I can't ever do this again. This is so hard to incorporate an NPC into an existing plot, and having 5 players completely throws out how long I expect things to take. So
yes, that's the secret background reason why we tend to do more guests on the one-shots now as opposed to the main campaign. It's not that we don't love our guest players very dearly, but it is a logistical, a little bit trickier. Not to say we will never do a guest in the middle of a regular season again, but expect them more frequently in the one-shots, as it were.
Yeah, well said.
All right, another question we got here. Have you played any editions of D&D other than 5e, and if so, which is your favorite? I think both Red and I have played 3.5.
Yes. 3.5 is my favorite. I had the 4e source books when they first came out, but they were so kind of blandly weird, because it's kind of like a middle ground between 3.5 and 5e, and 3.5 is buck wild and has no game balance. 5e is significantly more balanced, but also significantly more toned down. 4th edition, it kind of felt like they were trying to make it feel like a video game.
Yeah.
Well,
it was the one that was intended for
VTT,
a multi.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, it was supposed to have the VTT. Interesting story behind that. Go Google it.
But it also did this weird thing where it kind of made the monster manual significantly more oddly samey, where like
I disagree with that. I have the monster manual back here for 4th edition, actually. Oh, it's on my other shelf.
When I say samey, I'm gonna need to pick up my iPad in a second. What I mean is that it made it so that everything was a thing that the players could go fight and kill. Including things like angels, which in previous edition it was like these are celestials. They have specific alignments. You're probably not going to be fighting them, but they have a stat block. Whereas in 4th edition, they were kind of like jumping through hoops to make it so that absolutely everything that wasn't a player character was a potential antagonist that the players were going to be expected to fight, which was just an odd kind of flattening of the feeling of the monster manual. Rather than like a bestiary, it's like just a list of things that the players might punch.
That makes sense. I do. So to answer the question, I've only played 5e. I've watched a good deal of 4e though. I watched a whole campaign of 4e online, a stream of it, and I actually really find it interesting. I totally see what you say though, Red. That is true. The 5th edition. I don't know in the 3.5 source books. But from what I understand, 3.5 and 5e, because 5e is a response to 4e failing terribly, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It goes way far back towards 3.5. So. Both of those monster manuals are very much like they're written by people in the world. Now, 5e does still have stats and is like, yeah, here's a unicorn in case you'd ever fight a unicorn. Now, it only does nice, good things. So it's not really a useful stat block, but I do agree with you there. I would love to play 4e at some point, because you're right, it is video gamey, but that's because they throw out a lot of the assumptions, like wizards being far more powerful than marshals, for example. They throw that out and they just give people at will powers, encounter powers, and daily powers. So depending on how strong a thing is, you can do it either every turn, and if you do, it does some cool thing. It's not just attack, right? You can do an attack that does a cool thing every turn, or you can use things that are like once per fight. This is the kind of thing that's powerful, but like after you catch a breather, you're good to do it again. And then the kind of thing you do once per day, and you kind of see that mimicked in like things like cantrips, and then things that recover on a short rest, things that recover on a long rest. But I think that 4e balanced it a lot better. It was a lot less swingy, and I find that really interesting. Also, it is totally different. I can see why it's also not less fun for people.
Yeah. What I do like about 3.5 is that they just kind of kept adding stuff to it. Like every few months there would be another, because they had Player's Handbook, obviously they had Dungeon Master's Guide. They also had Player's Handbook 2, where they had like more ideas. They started dropping in prestige classes, which is a thing that you could take after you had 10 levels in some specific main class, which is kind of in 5e the specification, like the subdivision that every class has, like being an Astral Self Monk or being like a Hexblade Warlock. That was essentially something that in 3.5 would have been relegated to a prestige class. Like if you hit level 10 in Rogue, you can start taking levels in Shadow Dancer and just get some fucking crazy powers. They also kept rolling out new monster manuals. They had little Unearthed Arcana books for every main class, which would also include variants for that class, which was always fun. I had like all of them, I think. And then they also had like just a book all about aberrations. It was called Lords of Madness, and it had all these things about mind flayers and aboleths and a bunch of other less interesting things, including...
Pick that up.
You should, yeah, because they had some interesting stuff
Lords
about
of Madness
3.5. Yeah, Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations. And it had this, I think it was 3.5. Oh, don't worry. Well, it had this really interesting thing about Neothelids specifically that I mentioned, because Magenta mentioned this to me. I hadn't read the Book of Aberrations very clearly, but in that one, a Neothelid is what happens when a Mind Flayer colony essentially experiences colony collapse. And the Elder Brain dies, and the Mind Flayer tadpoles are left unattended, and they just start eating each other, and one of them grows huge, and they have an int of 20, and they consider Mind Flayers to be an abomination. Because essentially Mind Flayers in this paradigm are a slave race created by Elder Brains out of a completely normal-ass worm with psychic powers. And Neothelids are the natural state of what these tadpoles would be if they are stuck in a... Yeah,
I've never heard that before. That's so
exactly
cool.
it. They're hugely powerful, hugely intelligent. Elder Brains can't detect them.
PDF is free online, folks.
Yeah.
Yes,
Google Lords of Madness, first thing that comes up.
I'm downloading it.
That's all secondhand. I can't speak to the exact accuracy of it, but I generally trust Magenta in these things.
Yeah, it's all to say that I think the most other editions anyone on the team has played is either 3.5 or 4. I do have all the books for 2nd edition because my dad and his brothers and cousins, one of them was cleaning out their attic and was like, hey, Sophia likes tabletop games. Does she want all these miscellaneous second edition books, but I have not managed to play them because reading them is like an incomprehensible text in ancient Greek that I only half understand. And so I don't know that I'm ever going to viably be able to run a game in it, but it's neat to be able to flip through them and see what they got written down lore-wise. But we got more questions to get to. This one from the chat. Critical question for Wally. Do you now have a harmonica or kazoo?
Unless someone has sent me one, I do not.
Noir
I think
has
there,
many.
there was notion that someone had. I haven't checked the mailbox in forever because
maybe you should.
I checked it really often early on, and then there was there wasn't stuff in it, and then I stopped checking it really often.
Didn't someone say that they were gonna send?
Someone at some point told me, no, don't bring that up here.
There's Absolutely a P.O. box in the show notes for anyone who's interested. We got more from chat. Alrighty, I actually was not reading as I said that, but now I will. Reminder that we are going to talk about Campaign 2 at the end, so please hold any questions for that until then. This is also a call out for Austin. Every time you grab something from behind you, it sounds like you're falling down a flight of stairs. Very funny.
I aim to please, honestly.
Now that you can have integrated Emmy into the ship, can she have an illusionary form to talk to the crew?
That would be very cool. Yes, do that, Austin.
I'm surprised.
You know what? I think we actually mentioned this once. Yeah, she totally could do that because there is the illusion room and she controls it. So
I guess
synergy.
It would be. At this point, it would just be confined to the illusionary room for now. I'm sure.
Well, no, she can walk around the ship because she can disguise the ship. I think, right? Because she can cast the illusion around it. So
you're so right.
Yeah,
I think
only for a little bit a day.
Aya from the Green Lantern animated series from First Principles.
Let's go.
Oh, I still haven't watched that.
You should. It's great.
No,
Hal Jordan and Kilowog are only in there to justify their like OC fanfic romance between an edgy Red Lantern boy and a sentient spaceship.
Oh, Razor, right?
Yeah.
So we could, in theory, like make the ship look like a different kind of ship, and then projected Emmy could look like a different kind of adventurer or creature, and we could do a little bit of a sneaky deception move that way in a pinch.
I think just the notion of Emmy being able to just like going up to Emmy like, hey Emmy, you can choose what you look like now. What does Emmy see as herself? That notion in itself is cool.
Yeah, we'll have to see. There's that's definitely something we should consider. Who knows if we'll get around to that in this when or if we'll get around to that. But I think that's safe to say that's something that would happen in the future even if we don't see that in the show.
We've just been kind of busy.
It's one of those things. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to do a detour like that. But definitely, I will go ahead and say canon at some point. Even if we don't see it in the show, Emmy will start doing that.
Aww.
Yeah, hasn't it
I'll come out for that.
It's been just like a day in world, right? Since getting Emmy in the AI or something like that.
I have to think about where we are. The last thing that happened in the episode was you guys defusing the bomb, and
because I feel
put her in before you visited Maxim. But it's technically been a couple days, but not many.
Did we rest before seeing Maxim? Because from Vlokith to the Beastlands that was like
one day. So she got so I guess it was one day.
2 days.
She gets the ship. You guys go to Maxim. You guys go to the Beastlands.
Let's not say
end of day 1, and then
it's Earth Place. That's a day.
Is Earth Place. So that's day 2. So yeah.
So we've been busy. Oh man.
We have indeed. Another question from chat. Now that campaign 1 is ending and character stories are wrapping up, did you guys ever think the B team would be so popular?
The B team is always popular.
Yeah,
love the B team.
I knew people would love the B team. I didn't know who was going to be on the B team.
Right. That's what I was.
We started with
like.
Cressida, right, and then
we started with Ione.
Ione was
Ione.
Technically, Ione. You're right. No, Ione.
We love a woman who is antagonistic to us at first, and then slowly over time has a moral quandary that turns around and becomes our friend.
And we're gonna get to see the rest of their story play out to catch up to where we saw them in the Beastlands. I'm gonna keep pushing that on Patreon for our patrons. But there was a version that was going to see them all assemble. I knew that we wanted them to exist, and I was trying to plot out where the very Tolkien, like trying to think of like, well, where's Gandalf got to be in order for this to happen correctly? I was trying to figure out how they might run into each other and when you guys might find them. And I kind of, and things changed as you guys changed and the plots changed. But originally my notion was that they were all going to meet each other first. And then you guys were gonna, what was gonna happen? I forget. There was gonna be like a surprise mind flayer thing, and you guys were gonna be like, "Oh, well, this must be the thing. Let's go kill them once and for all." And then on the ship, you were gonna run into the B team. They were all gonna also be there, and then you guys could have had a big boss fight, and that would have revealed the mind flayer's plans. That would have been the on ramp onto that story. But things went a little bit differently, and they ended up meeting because of you guys, which does make more sense. It's less coincidence, right, that all these characters meet up. But yeah, the whole thing was going to be David and Athos, which we already saw happen, and then Cressida and Ione were going to meet up, and then they were going to meet and fight each other, because that's what superheroes do when they meet for the first time. Love that idea, and it had to change, but it's been really cool to see how it's changed because of you guys.
We got a kind of related question in chat. Would you guys ever do B team one shot? If so, which character would everyone play? Anything's possible in regards to the one shot part of it, but which of the B team members would each of us, the cast, play as in that hypothetical?
I call Davion. I call Davion.
See, here's the thing. I insist on being a player.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to be Davion.
I've already ditched Cressida as my backup character if you kill Kyana, so...
Alright, well, I won't be Davion.
You can be Davion if you want. I'm not gonna.
It's okay. I'll run it. I can
run it. I'll run all the adjacent in-world one-shots, apparently.
Okay, well, if Noir's running it, then I do want to play as Davion.
If I was running, what would you guys pick? So we've got a David and Cressida. Who's taking Athos and who's?
I'll take Athos, of course.
I'll do Ione then. I'll roll for Ione. I feel like
you will get some of that rogue that you've always wanted.
I will get some of that rogue that I've always wanted. The dream. Indeed.
Austin, if you were a player, you said you wanted to be Davion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Davion is beloved by everyone except Dani.
NPC, like he's the one that feels like what I would play if I was playing one shot.
In a world where we had like an animated adaptation of this and we all voiced our characters, the character that Austin is voicing is Davion.
Yeah, that'd be
great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and then you gotta get. Oh, who's the guy who voices? Do you remember Haku's father in Avatar? Who's like, "Don't worry, I hear cowards."
I think that's Kevin Michael Richardson.
There you go. I was gonna say the perfect Maxim.
Another question from chat. What's the current tally of little dudes? All right, rundown. We got Plug, Sunny, Alan, Drone. I count Docent as a little dude in a way.
Alan has not had his name revealed.
We don't have Docent anymore.
Their name isn't Alan. We joked about it.
I mean, they've got a couple episodes until that drops. But
all right,
okay,
Alan is still a viable weird little dude. Plug. Alan,
we don't have Docent anymore.
Drone,
he's not a
Sunny. Emmy is gonna be a weird little dude in that case, maybe.
Okay.
Which sort of makes the Paraspora a weird little dude.
She's kind of a person though.
Well, no. Here's the thing, right? If we ever do a second weird little dude on the Paraspora, Emmy could just manifest herself however she wants. So she could be just point. Emmy, but like shrunk down to an inch to like be on the same size, or Emmy could just take on a different form. But so yeah.
I'm reminded I did play Davion in a one shot. Victoria just next to me. She's like, "You did do that." It's like, "You're right. I did."
Of course you did.
Everyone loves to be a swashbuckling tiefling. What's not to love?
He's great.
Yeah, Finbar took a number of weird little dudes with him in the Pixies and Coriander. But I consider the Cannons a weird little dude.
They're also weird. Yes,
they got feet.
As well.
They count.
They are weird and little.
They are weird and little.
Yeah.
Size category small or tiny. I feel like that counts.
Yes.
I do gotta say, Bing is not sentient. Any personality that Bing has, that's Virla just having fun. So I can't in good.
I would also consider Bing a weird little dude because I think it is very funny that we continuously pack bond with any ability that Virla seems to acquire throughout this campaign. I'm gonna pack bond with your spiritual weapon, and you can't stop me.
Oh yeah, Google.
Do the cannons have names? People have suggested many names over time. I have never really named them. I don't know that Dani names them, but I do think that they have personalities. I think the one that stands on its own 2 feet and is a standalone form is actually very, very sad, and the handheld one is just like too cool, you know, like too cool and they know it.
Huh.
And that's the personalities I think they have.
It's like sad one and glad one.
Sad one and glad one, basically.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
Julian Becker, did killing the inevitable loosen other magic restrictions? No, just that one. There are other some things cannot be done, and other things have different inevitables protecting them. Just that one thing was one rule.
If we want to break the entire Planescape, we got to do it inevitable by inevitable. After all,
you got to fight a bunch of them. Beach episode when? Sorry guys, beach. I don't know if this is obvious. Beach episode.
I don't think we're getting to a beach.
Maybe we have time for 20 more cool adventure.
I gotta say, so like at the end of episode 4, I forget if this was mentioned in session or like kind of in our post session kind of like wind down or whatever. Austin said like, you kind of are a couple of days ahead of the mind flayers. You don't necessarily have to go defuse the bomb right away. You could like prepare if you wanted to. Before episode 5, before we recorded, I kind of bring up like, hey, just I think there's a world in which we just do a beach episode being like a calm before the storm. We kind of just like give ourselves a bit of a like just one last day of comfort before we go and head into the fire, and everyone collectively was like, nah. So let it be said that I tried. So
it's not that we don't like the concept of a beach episode, but this is the finale season, and so there's a certain amount of stakes that must be maintained. We got more questions. This one comes from our email. Unfortunately, I can't come to the stream, but I have a question for Sophia. You've said about various ideas that it's, quote, not the stupidest thing I've tried on this podcast, end quote. What then, out of all the insane stuff you've tried to have Dani do you consider the stupidest or most ridiculous rule-breaking idea you've had on the show?
Oh, God.
I mean, where do I start, right? Like,
it's gotta be the sheep.
I mean, the Golden Ram fight might be my single favorite 20 minutes of the entire podcast, just on how thoroughly I had my ass handed to me, the comedic beats that it hit, and then the payoff for it is us getting that hologram room. It's like a perfect crystallization of Dani's character in those earlier seasons. Although I do have to give a shout out to catapulting bomb off of ship. I think that was up there for me. Dani creating, this is one I think gets left on a little bit from the Feywild episode, and not that I would remember that, but Dani introducing the concept of Home Alone, Lost in Sigil, and that being a running thing throughout that episode, just like the whole Dani and Virla trying to teach these Firbolg children how to like do crime and set up traps was extremely fun, and often I think veered into that. But it's got to be the Golden Ram fight, right? Like that's just so
pay off.
It didn't even pay off.
Didn't do anything.
We didn't even fight them in that village.
Oh, it's so funny. You guys are like, we're gonna commit to 2 plans. I was like, half of you are gonna be sad.
We had to try. You know, we had to give it in for us and try our best. But yeah, I think if I had to pick the stupidest thing I've done on this podcast that I think has paid off, Golden Ram fight is definitely way up there. That was a fun season because, Austin, we talked about this behind the scenes. I'm like, oh, I want Dani to have a project that she's working on, and she needs like a shopping list for it. And you had given me a list of 3 objects that I needed in order to complete certain upgrades to the ship, and the hologram room was the one I was working on when I needed the Golden Ram hair and like the glue and the big lens. And it was fun to have like a little behind the scenes completely secret motivation to get to drop a bunch of don't worry about it and have a little something going on that, just for me, that paid off for the whole crew, because now we have that cool hologram room that's been fun to use throughout the subsequent seasons and in the continuing upgrades to the ship. I think it worked out really well, and of course it did give us the best 20 minutes of slapstick comedy that have come out of this podcast.
Amazing.
Yeah, I almost wish we could have gotten more of those. And the answer is we probably could have, if 1, there was like a little more time, and 2, if like we'd gotten through them a little faster. Because the first project ended up being kind of a big thing, and it took a little while for you to get all the stuff. And if it had been a little faster, then maybe. But also, I that was partially on me, because I couldn't decide if those ingredients needed to be things you could easily purchase, and thus there's like not that much stakes to it, or if they needed to be things you quested for, in which case it had to be kind of a big deal, and they had to be spaced out. And I had a hard time squaring which one it had to be. And I went with the latter, and so it took a while to get everything.
Yeah,
but
I think it ultimately worked
there
out.
There might be
though.
a better way to do that.
It could be a fun thing if I think it's not too spoiler to say this. We hope to come back to these characters for a one shot in the future, and maybe to have some sort of allusion to that type of system of upgrades. Then yeah, it could be a thing.
You watch a beach episode?
You watch a beach? Look to the future. But we got more questions in chat. This one: if the crew had the option to change one event in the entire campaign, what would they choose?
Ooh.
Main timeline or like backstory stuff?
I think anything.
Virla had his
in the
change one event moment.
Yeah, Virla already flashpointed in the privacy of his own brain.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
We don't have time to unpack all of that. What about you guys?
Ah, man.
Is there like a role that went badly you wished that hadn't?
I don't know about a role, but I think in my Noir laughing sadly.
I have a fucked up idea.
Please,
you guys
yes,
go first.
tell us more.
Kind of wish in episode 5 the two of us died, so Voss had, or either two of us died, so Voss had to choose, or one of us died and Voss still got feeble-minded. So there was like even more of an incentive to get Voss unfeeble-minded.
In a similarly morbid way, I did kind of a little part of me was like, I kind of hope this is where Dani fails to defuse this bomb, because the drama of being trapped in that sphere when that bomb goes off is going to be so high.
I mean, it would have dropped concentration as soon as you got exploded, so we would have been able to revivify you or something.
But it probably...
Yeah, but she would have been blown to fuck. Did I mention this I don't know if it stayed in the recording or not, but how much damage Dani was going to take?
I don't think you gave us a dice number, if that's what you mean.
I could tell you exactly how much it was. Give me a sec.
Am I glad that Dani survived? Yes. Do I think it would have been dramatic if I had failed? Absolutely.
I'm glad that we had...
end that episode.
But I am glad that we got a couple like tense moments though, like because there was in Dani's specific little bubble, the round loss to haste dropping, and I think one failed roll was like a good 1-2 punch, while everything else was also going to shit. Like that was an episode that ended up being extremely cinematic, just in the way the threats worked, the pacing rolled out, the way the dice cooperated.
It's easily the top 3 most dangerous, potentially lethal encounters you've been in, along with definitely the fight against the Gith Yankee underneath the Citadel, with the anti-magic room.
Right.
That
was a tough encounter. And then maybe the ball hunt off the very first episode. I really put you guys through the fucking ringer. I mean, Dani almost died so often in that first episode.
To be fair, that just set the tone for the rest of the campaign, where Dani would proceed to almost die once an episode. And I don't plan on playing a high constitution character next time either, so y'all can deal with it.
No.
We had to bail on the Teleshalotl encounter. I'm pretty sure, right?
That is a big miss thing. Saving the Teleshalotl.
That was a hard one. Yeah.
I think the one-on-one honorable battle with, was that Endelion? Was that the first time we dealt with Endelion?
That was.
That was.
Yeah,
because
I think that would have been fun.
Because Virla and Finbar went in a different way than Kyana and Dani did. So we had like the split party almost too to deal with there, and then so like Finbar and Virla were holding their own against Endelion, who was a force to be reckoned with at that point.
And
that one was rough.
Virla immediately got shanked. It was scary.
But we did have that bit where it's like, perhaps if you could defeat him in honorable combat, he'll give you information. And then that didn't end up happening because the one-on-one combat just kind of got stopped after about 2 rounds with outside interference.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were very effective, though. I kind of lured you in because that's what was happening. Like, I'd written down that those were the events. And then you guys wanted to do this other thing, and I was trying to square away of, like, it's not canon until I say it. So do I just let them have this moment, or do I honor what I think is happening? And I went with the first, and I don't know that that's the right choice necessarily. It definitely could have been more interesting to have the other way. The bomb, if I'm correct in my calculations, I think it took you 6 or 7 rounds to defuse it. It started at 12d6, and the damage went up 2d6 every round. So it would have been somewhere from 24 to 26 d6 that Dani would have taken. And then if it fully charged,
that's an average of 91 points of damage.
No, that's
that would have smoked Dani. And it's an intelligence save, obviously too. Which actually, so Dani might have come through. But it was, and that by the way was just for it being whatever. So what I'm looking for, disarmed incorrectly. It would have been more devastating if someone mentioned, they were like, oh yeah, wouldn't this have been worse because it's in the middle of the astral plane, which is the world between worlds? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The Mind Flayers didn't know that, and none of the characters investigated that. But yeah, would have had a ripple effect throughout all of reality.
Well, I'm glad we dealt with that then. Related to that episode,
I was really ready to fuck up the whole setting if
Austin
those
really
rules
said,
were botched.
last season, let's just throw it all out the window.
One way or another, this season is ending.
One way or another, this is the end
Yeah.
for us.
Well,
for a campaign.
and then Dani puts up the Resilient Sphere, and I was like, oh shit, like
That'll do it. Yeah.
even if it goes off, it protects against energy. It's just gonna smoke her.
So
she has saved the planescape just with one smart spell.
So excited to read that. I was going through my spell list. I'm like, there's got to be something in here that will allow me to cover grounds quickly. And then I've looked at my only spell of that level, and I was like, oh my god, it doesn't say like a specific kind of damage. It expands it to like energy. Nothing can pass through the sphere. I may not have a brain, but I have an idea. And it paid off, thank God. I've been so bad.
Did you just reference monsters versus aliens?
Did you just get that reference?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I heard that
Bob
as
the Blob from Monsters versus Aliens.
I heard that as a sound someone used on TikTok, and you knew that from the movie. So which one of us is really the one who referenced monsters with aliens
crazy.
here?
You're both.
I've never even seen it.
Oh god.
What in God's name is happening here?
The encounter that was skipped was there was a big lava river, and there were fire immune ropers that were going to grab them and pull them in. And I'm sad that didn't happen.
I'm glad we didn't have a fourth combat in that episode. That took me like 2 straight days to edit.
Sage Christmas. I think you mentioned that afterwards, and because there is a chunk of that episode where I was like, oh yeah, like ropers, where like they can also get seromorphed partially, but like so they're as smart as Mind Flayers, but their existence is pain, and you were like, how interesting. It's just.
Yep, there were some. I spent $4 on fucking D&D Beyond to get the other. It was like magma roper, and I was like, oh, let me see the stat block. And it's like, you don't own this, you dumbass. And I was like, well, it's 6 CR higher. It must be a different monster. The one is 4, this one's 10. It must be a different monster. I'll buy this one. I'll see what cool abilities it has. And I bought it. And the thing that gives it an extra 6 CR is it's immune to fire. That's the change. And I said, I could have done that.
Huh, alright.
We got more questions to get to. To everyone, how excited and fearful are you of plunging down through all 600 plus layers of the abyss? I'm terrified.
Okay.
And also secretly, we may have already recorded that episode.
Yeah, we have already done it. Like,
we may have already done it. So we'll see how it turns out. I was terrified before it happened, but also
before and during, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
And who knows what happens after.
That is the most math I've ever done balancing an encounter, where I'm like, okay, what's the average damage these guys can do per round? How many hit points am I adding? What's the average damage the bad guys can do? Trying to like perfectly balance this plate standing on a needle. Yeah, oof.
Juggling plates.
Good metaphor.
Yeah.
Spinning plates. Monkey spinning plates. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would the rest of the crew act like while feeble-minded? Vhas is the most wholesome in a sad way, but what would the rest be?
Oh no.
I think Dani just gets like feral, right? Like really riff-raff street rat to the max.
Yay.
I think Virla would just kind of like Wally blank slate.
Ooh.
I think Kyana stops doing anything unless provoked. Just kind of like lies down and stares at the sky, but then if anything happens around her, she reacts.
Yeah.
Feeble Mind is it's an intense spell.
Yeah.
It's one of those rare occasions where D&D actually like has rules about RP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question from chat. Sophia, you mentioned that you picked up on everyone's habits because of editing. What are some little things you've noticed about each player? You guys want me to put you on blast? Want me to put you on blast?
Here we go.
You've kind of done it already. You've told us.
Austin likes to drum on his legs a bunch and makes sounds with his mouth before he says every line.
That's true.
Noir types because he takes notes, which is admirable, but his keyboard is right by his microphone, so if you hear in the episode, that's Noir.
Yeah.
Red's dice make the most sounds of anyone else's dice because somehow they have
purposely
been
hold the tray up to the microphone.
Yeah. Red purposefully makes dice sounds, which is why her track is the one that most frequently has the dice rolls left in it, because often they are over her talking, and therefore I cannot just take them out in post every single
You're all
time.
Welcome.
And Wally, kind of similar to Austin, sometimes has a little bit of background noises and stuff, which is not his fault so much, but Wally is a very thoughtful person before he speaks, which means he has the slowest speaking speed of anyone on the podcast. And so sometimes I'm like, why is this section so long? I'm like, oh, because Wally is a thoughtful person who thinks before he speaks, unlike the rest of us who are just blurting out everything that pops into their head in big moments.
I'm just shotgun firing jokes into the ether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I find it a nice, like, comedic, especially if I'm gonna do a joke. I find it a nice like beat beforehand, but that is on blast.
But I say all of this with love. No one is doing anything that is so horrible I cannot edit the podcast to a place where it sounds nice, and I think that it's ultimately like everyone's gonna have some vocal stuff that goes crazy. I definitely say way more than I should, and have a tendency to get like a mouthful of words that I stumble over. So like no one's immune. My stuff's not perfect either. It's just the thing that happens. But yeah, I'm intimately familiar with the audio related problems with everyone's tracks.
I will say, so episode transcriptions has been an ongoing struggle because it's just inherently difficult to do so. But like whenever I have some free time, I try and just crank some out. And I have learned when you're subtitling, there's like a kind of standardized amount of time that you want to have subtitles on the screen so that it's like legible and you can read it without having to speed read it or anything like that. Backing up what Sophia says, basically all of us except for Wally completely throw that out the window. It's like, shit, we're saying like 50 characters in 0.3 seconds. That's awful. And then also regarding the dice, like everyone's dice rolls sound unique and different, and so I can tell.
Yes.
Like even I don't have like the isolated
Reds are like
tracks or
so
anything like
precise and in their full. Mine are like a drop and then a.
Austin has like just
sent me
one
a wooden dice tray with a little like storage space for one row of dice. So, and I hold it about 2 inches from my microphone.
Nice.
Austin just has like one heavy dice that just thunks or something like that.
Oh, I have 2 dice that are made out of glass.
Well, there you go. That's probably it.
Oh, there you go.
They're made out of glass. They're
like
I
know the ones you're talking about. Yes.
My brothers gave me beach glass dice for Christmas this year, and they're very fun to roll. But I do have to roll them in the dice tray because they're very, very heavy.
Yep, exactly. Yep, yeah. I have to roll them in my dice. I have like a felt lined dice tray. So.
Yeah. I gotta get a new dice tray.
Mine's the most horrifying question I've ever seen in chat.
The one about how we talked about the way that characters would want to die next time, but now is their way they would consider the worst. Freezing to death for Dani, because how does that work? She's made of fire.
Oh, truly.
Well, she could die in very very high temperatures. Actually, she wouldn't need to be that cold for her.
I think the feeble mind is already a death for Virla.
Yeah, it's
no one tell. See, the thing is, for Voss, he's experienced death multiple times before, so he's not. It's tough for him to say which is the worst way to die. So, and as for Finbar, not having, I guess it being a freak accident would be like a weird way to die. As a druid, death is a natural part of life. So for someone to come to an end, or for it to happen in combat, on an adventure, those things he accounts for. But weird freak things that unexplicable have no meaning to, he finds tragedy in. So I guess those would be the 2.
Ceramorphosis.
Yeah.
That's pretty awful.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think because Kyana was purposefully not taught about mind flayers, it didn't click for a while what exactly their deal was. And now she has a new fear.
Kyana is personally victimized by the plot of Baldur's Gate 3.
Was Kyana ever given like false information, like, well, when a mommy mind flayer and a daddy mind
No,
flayer.
This is like
We're
the
not.
third time
this
on
was a
one of these
notable
Q&As
poll
we've had
in
a
my-
did the mind flayers have a sex ed class conversation?
Yes,
we gotta move past this.
Oh, sorry.
Well, the point
Yeah,
is,
we've had this
I was
conversation.
taught about Underdark threats because we were actually serving as a bulwark against things coming up from the Underdark, but I was purposefully
Yeah.
never taught about mind flayers. So they were like the only thing that I actually didn't know about from the Underdark.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were actually bad things coming up in the mind flayers. Like, well, we don't really want them eating our sheep, so we should probably teach them how some self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, what a sentiment.
Yeah.
There was also there was training them psionically to make better mind flayers, which never panned out for them.
Parents of the year.
Well, we got
Uh,
more questions to get to.
Yeah. Look, I want to add. There might be a follow-up question for this, so real quick. Lycan Lich ritual. If you mean the one that they saw in Eastgard, she was just opening a portal to get to Sigil. She's just opening a portal, and then I can't remember if she had a plan at the wedding. Are you asking about in Eastgard, or are you asking about at the wedding, Jaden Billishaw?
I was just
Sorry, go
What
on.
about the one where they
Well, give us
had
both, give us
Karun
both.
Atrocity in the circle? That was making.
Oh,
cool,
the
right?
one where they had Corinne Atrocity in the circle. They were doing the same thing. They were going to consume a powerful creature, Corinne Atrocity, and make it be one with Zootmoy, because that's her whole thing, right, with the fungus nonsense. And then the Alkalith opens a portal to the abyss. So they were the Lycan Lich was actually doing the same thing, but in reverse. They were trying to open a portal to the 222nd layer in in the basement of the Searing Tongue, and then they were going to take over the building because like Zootmoy wasn't going to come, but they were going to take over the building because like then they would have really fucked up the Searing Tongue. It would have been a huge blow to a philosophically opposed faction, and there was like the lady wasn't going to care that this building went from being owned by this group to this group. Like, she doesn't give a shit. So that was what they were going to do. At the wedding, I don't remember. Was she just trying to kill?
I always
I
got
think
the
she was just
impression
trying
that
to
was
kill
just a crash,
Finbar
you
and
know?
Elise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was just trying to kill Finbar and Elise and what am I looking for?
Upstage bride.
Assimilate them.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
Let me double check. There might be something about.
It might have been under the
Lycan Lich,
pretense
but-
of like trying to
Because they
union with Zootmoy or something like that, like a
Yeah.
Exactly.
parallelism
Yeah, she was
to
gonna
marriage.
she was gonna quote marry both of them, and yeah. So that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a specific sequence of events. More so than she was just trying to kill them and assimilate them. So.
And it didn't work.
More
kind of-
questions.
Yeah. What's everyone's favorite 5e class and subclass? Not to be basic on main, but Bard College of Lore is
Bard.
pretty tight.
Bard College of Lore.
Hell yeah, Noir! High five,
Yeah.
buddy.
Although I do like the Swashbuckler Rogue.
Oh, yeah.
I played them for a home game, and oh, they're so great.
I do gotta give some love.
Oh man.
Warlocks are pretty tight. Any of the charisma-based ones generally is a good rule of thumb
Warlocks,
for what Sophia likes a
so
lot.
good.
And I did have the
Swashbuckler
opportunity
Rogue,
briefly to
really
play
good.
a Rune Knight fighter, which was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. And of course, I do love an Artificer now after rolling with difficulty, but that's a new development.
My favorite, it's tough. There's so many that I never got to play that I think about a lot, but I played. It's janky because it's overpowered and then it's underpowered and it's overpowered. But the Moon Druid is of course a classic.
Also loves a
And I
druid.
played a Divine Soul Sorcerer for 20 levels, and I fucking love that dude. Dude, putting meta magic, as you've seen from Voss, putting meta magic on the Cleric spell list. No one should
Absolutely.
No one should ever do it.
It's so broken. It's two classes in one. It's
It's
Okay.
fucked up.
I
and
haven't
I-
played enough 5e to have a favorite.
I like the half casters. I like
Oh,
a
yeah.
good mix of everything. So I love the Eldritch Knight is easily my favorite. I love the
That's
Ranger
a good
class.
answer.
Across the board, all the Ranger stuff is my favorite. And as well, so I'd like to play an Arcane Trickster at some point. But yeah, I like having options in combat besides
Yeah.
just swinging a sword. Or I like options. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have more questions coming at us.
They did worship the Dread Mallow Zelastago. They did worship the Dread Mallow Silverus, and they were pissed that they killed them, so they were gonna go get them for it.
Yeah. For Red, while you were drawing all the planes for the poster, what plane did you like the most visually speaking and description-wise?
Oh man, let me just load these up real quick so I can remind myself. Because there are so many. Like some of them. What was fun about them was that they were nice and simple. Like the Frostfell one, that was just texturing for a while. That was nice. Brass was the most complicated because it had the most fiddly detail. Sigil, kind of the same boat, because I really wanted to make it look like it was a busy city on the inside of the ring. And I have been working on shortcuts for that, but the shortcuts still take a while. Actually, I have a time lapse of that can go up on Patreon at some point in the upcoming months. You guys can actually see how I did the city texturing.
Yes.
Wasn't it also like we were discussing just like the logistics of how Sigil was geometrically?
It doesn't really make sense.
It makes sense.
It's just a torus, or it's like a bike tire. So it's like open on the inside, but you still can't see the sky.
A tire was the best way.
It's open on the inside. Yeah, it's not a full ring.
Yeah, so that makes it much more interesting to draw. I think Shadakla was the most interesting challenge because it didn't really have any hard delineations between anything. Like Beastlands is like there's background, foreground, there's animals. Even the Limbo one, I got to go kind of wild on the background textures, but the Adamantine Citadel needed like a shape. Even though because it's Vantablack, it could just be an outline, which was nice. But Shadakla, the whole thing is just this weird fungal castle thing. So I needed to do some work to figure out how to make that look right. I also have a speed paint of that because a lot of it was just like, all right, this is okay, but how can I make it look grosser? And and also it was a little bit complicated trying to make something that looked both like a mushroom tower and like potentially a building that people might exist in. And figuring out tricks to make it look more gross and spongy, and I had to look up reference photos of fungus, and I'm not the hugest fan of fungus in general, so I was like, all right, I gotta draw this quick before the itchiness overwhelms me. But overall, I think that was the one that I had some of the most fun with, just because it was the most interesting challenge. And turns out drawing mushrooms, not as hard as I thought it would be, because they have this irregularity to them that kind of, it's kind of like making a bad guy that's a shapeless amorphous blob. You will never have to redraw any part of it. Whatever your first line was will work. So kind of the same deal with that, which was nice.
Tight. We got more questions. This one more related to our favorite Mechanite lads. Can you explain why Maxim has a problem with Virla being a cleric?
Ooh. Yeah, so you can... if you're a patron, you can read the story. 2/3 of it is done. There's still part 3 yet to come. But to give you the short version, he was part of an adventuring party. They went on a very dangerous mission. They went there at the behest of their leader, their ostensible leader, who was a paladin. And paladin coded. These characters I don't always imagine them having the exact same abilities as NPCs that a PC would have, but he's paladin-like. They went to the behest of this paladin leader. And this was a person that Maxim was in love with and was kind of in love with Maxim. They weren't necessarily like officially a thing because like Maxim does not express emotions very well, and also they were on a team together. But they were in love, and this character died, and then there was a cleric on the team who they said, "Can you raise him?" And she was like, "Well, I've done it once before. I can't do it again." But I can try a miracle. I can divine intervention. I can ask Bahamut if he thinks if he says it's okay, I can raise him regardless. And she pleaded to him, and it failed. And as a result, this character Alexander did not come back to life. And there was a big fight where a bunch of them, but Maxim included, were like, "Has he not done enough? Like, who is your god to decide that he does not get to come back? Like, have you not done enough? Is it because you haven't been doing enough work for your god? Is it because he wasn't good enough?" And she was basically like, "That's not how faith works," and that was not an acceptable answer to Maxim, and he has never really recovered from that.
You're telling me Maxim has some sort of issue with things he can't control?
Yep.
Tell me the robot
and you see
is
that
sad.
in the way he talks to the other ones. He's very condescending to the rest of the group because he doesn't think he should be in charge so much as that he knows the answer. He's very convinced he always knows the answer. So.
And Alexander was the only one who could get him to fuck shit. It's so sad.
And yeah, Alexander was kind of what kept the whole group together. And so you've seen, if you've read both parts, you've seen the first 2 gut punches. There is yet a third gut punch to come. That was the final undoing of that adventuring party.
God, let him be
but...
happy, you fuck.
No,
well, that's kind of up to you, isn't it?
I also thought you guys weren't, because I was kind of obsessed with, so Maxim can't cast Sending because it's not on the sorcerer list, and I was kind of obsessed with him having to, like, at the end of season 1, you guys were like, can we cast Ascending to Kyana? And I was like, well, he can't do that because he doesn't have that spell, and why would it make sense for him to have a spell scroll? So I thought maybe he would have like a sending stone to an old party member who could do it for you, and that was Emerald. And I wrote that up, and then I looked at that and I said, this is too many steps for them. We don't need to make this getting in touch with Kyana about some NPC I made up. And so I was just like, he's got a spell scroll. Why does he have it? Because he's a pack rat. That's really all you need.
Dani's not the only one obsessed with hoarding things in this campaign. Thank you very much. We got even more questions. Oh my god. We'll probably be here for about another like half hour or so and then talk a little bit about campaign 2. But just to kind of give the audience a bit of expectations, I'll be wrapping it up shortly, but we got time for a couple more questions.
I'll jump in real quick if that's all right. The other choice for Voss in episode 1, the test of inner strength, was it was also going to be very similar combat, but instead of one huge ass thing attacking all of them and they would need to rely on each other, it was going to be one smaller thing that was going to really fuck up Voss. It had decaying touch, so every time it touched you, you had to make a con save or lose or spend a hit die with no benefit, and if you hit no hit dice, you get reduced to 0 hit points. So that would have been really hard for Voss because Voss always has few hit dice because of the fungal armor. Then there would have been some other flying guys to occupy the rest of the team. Not too dangerous, but just these flying things that could keep like harrying them, so they'd have to turn their attention to them. And if they succeeded, they were still going to get all their magic items. I thought everyone deserved a magic item, but instead of the charms, the spells they can cast, which, remind you guys all have those still. Voss would have gotten the Boon of Fortitude, which is an epic boon. It's meant for 20th level characters. It would have been very powerful. But instead, everyone got a smaller boon. So that's the path not taken.
Yeah. We got more questions. What deity would your character be a cleric to if they were one? Can't choose Mistra twice, Noir. Let me just pull up list of D&D.
I'll choose the old.
Somebody buy time while I do the same thing.
The old code. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
The old ones.
I have a paladin character who's a paladin of Bahamut because I just think he's neat. But he's kind of basic, lawful good, big shiny crystal dragon Jesus kind of thing. So we can do something better.
What do you want to just Mr. is such a good.
Finbar is not really a cleric, but he is. He does follow some of the druidic gods, Sylvanas being a big one. So, yeah. In terms of gods, it's weird because Voss is a divine soul sorcerer, but he pulls his divinity from a plane and not from any particular god. So it's tough to some sort of chaotic good god. I'd have to look something up.
Ilmater's pretty dope. Ilmater is like the god
might be it. Yeah.
Suffering, but also perseverance. So he's often depicted as being in like great pain but overcoming it. So he's pretty. He's usually a good guy. Fucking the champion of Ilmater is Hedda. Hedda's champion of Ilmater.
I have to shout out Blibdul Poolp, the Kuotor god of death.
Blibdul?
Yes.
Blibdul Poolp.
I'll
Her symbol is a lobster head or black pearl.
I'll also shout out Garl Glitter Gold.
She's a nude woman with a lobster head and lobster claws.
Wow.
I feel like Dani is probably the least likely to ever have any sort of a divine alignment of the crew, just because I think at this point she actively dislikes pretty much every god they've interacted with because they've immediately tried to kill her, directly or indirectly. But if she had to be a cleric of a god, I feel like Gond is probably the most obvious choice with all of the crafting associations and.
Oh, was the question specifically who our characters would be clerics of?
Yes.
Oh, was that it? Oh, yes.
Excuse me.
I just looked it up. There's a D&D god of knowledge called Ogma. I don't know anything else about them, but that just seems fitting for Vhas.
Ion kind of fits into that as well.
Since Mistra is no longer an option.
I think Azeth also is within those. Savras is another one of knowledge. I think
Azeth, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. all like wizard related. Somehow I know more about those than the rest of the.
Oh yeah, Sophris is like prophecy.
Yeah.
Sophris is cool. I gave my brother a sword called Sophris that, in a different setting, that Noir and Sophia were in that game, and the sword could like see the future, and so he got to command people on the battlefield with it. It was very cool.
Very cool.
Very neat.
Celestian, god of stars and wanderers. That one's
very
easy.
tight.
That's ooh. I didn't know about that one.
It's in Greyhawk.
Oh, that's why I don't know about
it.
Yeah. Also in Greyhawk
No,
is Istis,
canon.
which is a goddess of fate and destiny. So I guess I don't know. Virulily seems like he's headed somewhere, so that seems fitting.
Little shout out in the chat. Thanks to all of Rolling with Difficulty. The info from this helped me through Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, that's completely accidental, but I'm glad that you've been doing
I was originally inspired by the trailer. I was like, I gotta do that. And it's been crazy going back, seeing how many things are so similar. Like, I was watching someone near the end of the game, and no, only the mildest of spoiler, you're gonna fight the Mind Flayers. If you've played the trailer, you know that. And they're doing a bad thing. And it's just
the Mind Flayers,
it's just very similar to us as well.
Don't start.
So,
I have tried to, because I recently got my hand on a copy of the... I know I'm late to the trend, but I've been trying to figure out like how to reverse engineer. How close can you get to playing the Rolling with Difficulty crew as your like party of 4 in Baldur's Gate? And I'm like, okay, well, if you squint, Lae'zel could be Vhas. There's some beef with Vlaakith, and already a Gith, so that's great. Again, if you squint, Gale could be Virla. Mistra's right there.
Yeah.
At times
Gale
secretive.
Is we have Virla at home.
Gale is we have eat your heart out, Gale of Waterdeep. But then you run into the Dani and the Kyana of the group, in which there's many more issues.
It's gotta be the fucking artificer.
The problem is that Dani is not a playable character in this game because Dammon is not a playable character. Yeah. And you can't like reverse engineer her because fire genasies and artificers are not things you can make the Tav, which means that Kyana has to be the Tav in this situation, which I think makes sense. That you can get them off class.
Stand for?
The player character.
Rights again.
It's
the default name for
like the adventurer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What does it mean?
I know what it refers to. I was like, why Tav?
No,
yeah,
that's what Larian. That's what Larian said it as.
Acronym.
Every time you roll a new character,
that's funny.
It's Tav. Gotcha. Okay, that explains. I thought it might have been an acronym for something.
Yeah, but like it makes sense for Kyana to be the Tav, right? Because then also like some chosen one-iness there, beef with mind flayers. Okay, make her a monk. You got it. And like you can't play a Kalistar, but you can play a human and do some fun mind stuff. So you're close enough, right? Cool. Dani is the problem.
Dani is
as always. If you could make
if you
squint,
vibe.
Karlach has the fire vibe, but like. She's too nice. And then, like, if you squint, Finbar could be a Halcyon type. So then you just sort of don't have the captain. You just have to hang out with Dammon a lot, and you could get all 5 of us in there, theoretically.
I mean, you're not wrong. Halcyon is pretty close to... I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. But
this was not a question asked in the chat. This is just Sophia's crack theory that I've been working on. Someday I will make a Patreon bonus that is, this is how you can get, without any mods, as close as possible to playing all of the Rolling with Difficulty characters in this game. But that's for a later date. Let's go back to these questions that are here. There's so many Baldur's Gate things. I scroll back. One sec. Scrolling, so many bones.
Karlach does kind of have the Kyana attitude, though. That would work.
Karlach is probably the closest of the origin characters to a Kyana type. If I was gonna because you could respec her into monk, and it's not too far off.
Tragic backstory, good attitude. You know.
Yeah.
Solid combo.
Austin, how long have you been planning to kill Casimir? I don't know if I'm seeing old death flags that aren't there.
I didn't plan to kill him when I introduced him because I wasn't sure if you guys would ever go back. But then it became clear to me that you were going to go back, and I really debated it for a long time, and I left it ambiguous at the end of the season where it cut to black, because then I spent 2 months going back and forth on whether I was going to kill him or not. And then I was like, they gotta. I was like, Dexter's a bad dude, and we gotta see him being a bad dude. I can't just say he's a bad dude. He's gotta be malicious. The thing is, though, he's not like always malicious. Well, that's true, but like you gotta keep showing it, you know.
Yeah, you gotta keep letting him take the
you guys are the heroes. He killed you, and then you revived Dani. he has to do something with a lasting consequence. And I kind of went back and forth because I was like, he's also smart and cunning. He doesn't just kill. Like his only solution to problems isn't just kill people. So I thought like, okay, maybe that's why he doesn't kill Casimir. Really, it was, is it fair for me to remove an NPC you guys care about and you have no chance to save him? That wasn't true because you technically could have.
Yes.
Yeah, we chose to allow him to die.
And you chose to allow him to die, which is fine, by the way. It's kind of an ass, but...
Care is a strong word, I feel. Yeah.
But, yeah, so I knew that something bad was going to happen to him, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be death or not for a while, and then I ultimately decided it was
Austin let an artificer survive an encounter with your campaign 2K24 challenge.
It's funny that things have become trends, and I'm like, am I just narrow in my ideas, or are they themes?
At what point does a trend become a theme, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what is it? Is it just a thing? Like, I can't come up with any other ideas, or am I creating themes here? I don't know, but yeah, certainly artifice, certainly the mechanites being important was who knew, like, even when Noir was like, I want to play a Warforged, and I was like, cool, they're called this, and I kind of made them canon. We kind of made them canon through our discussions. I did not know that this was going to be kind of a campaign a little bit about the story of the mechanites, and like there's a lot of them in this, more than any other player species, and their origins are not revealed but kind of talked about. So I thought that was interesting. And the same with artificers. Like, this is kind of a story about how artifice, the new class, also the new thing in the cosmos, in the multiverse, is changing things, right? None of this gets off the ground without Egan and his knowledge being stolen by the intellect devourer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got time for one last regular question, and then we're going to jump on over to talking a little bit about Campaign 2. We're not going to do too much on that, but just to give you guys a little taste and answer a few of the most common questions we've seen. But this last question from the chat here. If Austin is our friendly neighborhood DM, what would the rest of y'all's epithets based on Marvel characters be? And related to that, what kind of DMs are the rest of you? So give yourself a Marvel epithet and the...
Oh, hold on. I have to Google something.
Yeah, and once again, I'm going to Google.
I'll answer, not this question, but what do I have against artificers? They're fucking dangerous. That's why people keep killing them. they have too much knowledge.
Your ability to infuse everyday items with pure magic is, I don't think people understand how you're essentially marrying two different worlds. You're making fantasy real for the everyday person.
Or a revolution that I don't think everyone understands.
Yeah, and at its base, you get, fun little wands that do little magic things, and at the highest echelons, we're breaking multiverses, so that's what you're that's essentially what we're harnessing.
Implications I did not think of when I said, I'm playing the mechanic on the ship. I don't know, I'll be an artificer, I guess. And it worked out great because now I get to explore all these things. Just flashing my brain back through epithets of heroes and villains, I'm expanding this to DC because I think it'd be very funny to describe my DMing style, and also Dani as the Clown Prince of Crime, because I do intend to make it everyone else's problem.
Detective.
No, I don't pretend to be that smart. I think that my goal with DMing is to do crimes, have fun, make little jokes, see the Call of Cthulhu one shot for a deeper explanation on why I might have selected this episode.
Oh man, does that make me? It kind of makes me the Joker of DMs. Not in a weird.
The Joker, baby.
Yeah, not in that way, but in that, like, I know how if I'm running a campaign, I know how it starts, I know how it ends. I might have a couple of points that I want to hit along the way, but for the most part, if you want to do something at my table, I'm going to say yes.
I guess Merc with the mouth would also work for Dani.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
okay. There we go.
But it's not Dani. It's us as DMs. Yeah.
Oh, is it specifically us as DMs?
I think it's either.
I mean, we could
really.
expand
We're vamping.
I mean,
feel free to answer.
For Virla, it's Shellhead. That's
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Old Shellhead. That's good.
Voss,
for me though,
without fear.
I don't know. I've already established myself as distinctly not the friendly neighborhood dungeon master, so I don't know what that means beyond that.
You could also make an argument for Virla being master of the mystic arts if you want to cop Doctor Strange's bit.
That's true. I don't.
Strange approach.
That's
Okay.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like totally blanking on like other titles now.
Apparently, people
I'm,
call
like,
Thor Goldilocks a lot, so I think
do.
Yes.
From Alan Moore's Miracle Man, Big Ben, the man with no time for crime. I'm gonna shorten that and say that my DM name is the man with no time, because the amount of sessions that I had to kind of pull out of my ass in improv are too many to be admirable.
I think
That's fine. That's okay.
Someone should be the DM without fear. I think that's a pretty good steal from Daredevil. That's not a bad one.
Deadpool the Crimson Comedian, which I'm dibsying for life.
Hell yeah.
There we go.
Or Masked Menace, if anyone of us wants the J. Jonah Jameson treatment.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Once again, J.K. Simmons has invaded every aspect of my life.
All right.
I love it when characters have, like, individual characters have nicknames for people that nobody else ever calls them. Like how Ra's al Ghul always calls him Detective.
Oh, it's great. I love that.
So good. I recently rewatched all of Batman Beyond for reasons, and the reveal of that one episode, it's so fucking good. Anyway.
Yeah.
Having little pet names for your friends is fun.
It's fun.
Yeah,
to
or
have
your
nicknames.
nemesis, as the case may be.
Yeah.
I use friends very loosely here, yes.
But all of this is to say, I think there's a lot of epithets that could work depending on how we approached it. We are coming up on the end of the live stream, and before we sign off, we do have
one more. Lobo, the main man. That's just your name as the DM.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I would steal
yeah.
that. I do love the main man.
All right.
But yeah, but we are coming up on the end of the live stream. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit now about Campaign 2, which, hey, we're doing a Campaign 2 when Campaign 1 ends. We're not disappearing forever. Rolling with difficulty will continue. But before I just talk about it forever, I believe Austin has a little something prepared to say on the subject.
Yes. So I created a pitch document for this campaign. And this includes some technical information about the campaign, but it also included some dramatic information. And so I think I'll share that with you guys now.
Is that what we're calling it? Dramatic?
I think so. Okay. In character. All right.
Do your thing.
All right, Burke. Here's how it is. I'm not sure what burg you came from before, but this is Sigil. This is the cage. Get it? It's not just the city you can't escape from. It's your problems. You're thinking you could just put your feet up and wait for law and order to solve them for you? Well, you better learn to get over disappointment real quick. Oh, sure, the factions kept order, once upon a time. Of course, that order was whatever they pleased, protecting them and theirs. The rest of us got snubbed. Or worse, steal. And God's help you if you think the lady is going to lend a hand. If she's taken an interest in you, let's just say I hope you're not too attached to your skin. Here, if there's something wrong you think needs righting, Better's got to take it on himself. Though, this is Sigil. If there are crowns to be made off of it, there are folks doing it. You really want this problem taken care of? I know some blood who can get the job done.
Yeah!
Yeah. So that's our little teaser of sort of the theme we're working on. We're going to be doing a kind of Heroes for Hire inspired return to the Adventure of the Week format, as it were. Just some specs to answer some commonly answered questions. Again, we'll have a lot more materials coming out in the next couple months that give you info about our specific characters, the name of the campaign, the setting. But to answer a couple commonly seen questions that don't give away too much here, we are going to be playing D&D 5e again. The campaign will be set in Sigil, so we're sticking with our kind of Planescape dealio. Austin will once again be our lovely dungeon master, and the players who are here now will continue to be your players in the subsequent campaign. Yeah, so that's very exciting. I think maybe we could, if we want to give a little teaser, because I think we've all kind of locked this in, do we want to say what class we're all playing for the next campaign?
Sure.
Yeah.
Noir, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I don't know if people know, but I like bards a lot. So yeah, I will be playing a bard, and I'm going full bard.
Hell yeah.
It'll be great. I'm loving it. We're staying in our cage and we're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Red,
City
how
of
about
Doors,
you?
but only for other people. Paladin.
Yep.
Ooh.
Paladin, a
Yeah.
Wally.
I'd like to be able to actually take a couple hits in combat this time around, but I'm not so willing to get out of my comfort zone that I'm not going to be able to hit stuff.
Hell yeah. I don't know how I'm going to fit in a multi-class, but I'm definitely doing a ranger for sure. Might sneak some cleric in there.
Yeah.
Oh
And
goodness.
I am doing a bard rogue multi-class because I played one class all of this campaign, and now you have to
Yes,
deal with
let's
it.
go.
We
There's
finally
so
get
many
our
bullets for
rogue.
people this campaign.
Bard,
We
but
finally
with
get our rogue. One
So,
campaign
rogue,
too
rogue,
late.
rogue,
But...
and bard at once. It's Sophia's two favorite classes together at last.
Yay.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited for this because, like, obviously, like, darting around the planescape is great, but just being able
Yeah.
to do, like, basically a case study in one area is going to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
And,
I'm
I think-
very excited by the notion of doing a city campaign. I've really wanted to do a city campaign for a long time, and what better city? You got to do it in
My
the
first
city.
The
you
city
know?
of doors.
Yeah.
The city of all cities. Like, it's gonna be great. So yeah, expect a lot more
Big Apple.
of a dive into Sigil. Again, like I said, we're going to be doing sort of a Heroes for Hire inspired deal, loosely inspired by the tone and vibe of detective shows and procedurals, but more of a adventures
Yes.
on an odd job kind of deal, because as we've talked about at length, it can be a little difficult to run a pure mystery in 5e, so we'll be really exploring the city more than anything else, and I think we're very, very excited to jump into this.
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
Pretty fun.
Exploring who finds justice in a city where there is no
Yes.
justice, right? There, like someone feels they've been wronged. There
Are
is
you
no authority to
asking?
go to.
Are you
The only
asking,
authority
Austin?
is
Where is
where
the
is the
justice?
justice?
Don't
when the
stop.
guilty are
Hey,
Stop.
cut it off.
Jeremy Jordan isn't here.
Right
You can't
now.
conjure him by just quoting the Death Note
For the
musical.
corporation.
Stop
to
it.
get
It's
away
copyright. It's
with
copyright.
murder.
No!
Oh man,
You young
So-
men and go burning.
You have to at least change the words.
what you see?
We don't have to.
Nah, we can just do whatever we want forever.
All bard cast, someone better be singing. We'll see.
Oh god.
But yeah, I think that's all we're gonna leave it at for now. Again, there'll be more information in the coming months, and the intent right now is for this to come out in when our summer season usually would. So you will be getting a new campaign this year after this one wraps up. And over the next couple months, particularly after season 5 wraps, we'll be releasing information about characters, their art, their level, their names, their voices, and all sorts of fun information about the setting and the campaign itself. So stay tuned. But thank you for everyone who's bearing with us. It's been so wonderful to see that there has been continued excitement for a new campaign. We hope that you enjoy this new story as much as we have enjoyed sharing this current story with you. And yeah, I think for now the main goal is just focus on the end of season 5 and 5 more episodes, guys. So exciting. We're
Almost done.
totally fine. We are going to bring this to an end. One last question: will the music be released anywhere else? All of the music for this campaign is on my brother's SoundCloud, as he has done all of the composition for us, and I think that's linked in all the show notes, and I will harass him after the stream to make sure that it is appropriately updated with all of the tracks that are available, but you can get all the music there. And as for housekeeping stuff, this week there will be no episode, as it's our week off, but don't worry. On Friday the 16th, there will be episode 6 ready and waiting for you, so hope you guys enjoy. I think we all have to sign off. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.